Hi guys, so today I'm just going to be talking about Hispanic culture, focusing mainly on religion and kind of on the different types of food. For my project, I went to a Spanish service in St. Louis, where I'm from, and afterwards they had a dinner where they cooked traditional food. I knew about the Spanish service because I have a friend from Guatemala. She and her family moved here a few years ago. I can't remember exactly what year, and they go to this church, and so that is how I knew about the service and about the food afterward. She was very happy to have people interested in her culture. When I went to the service, I was probably one of the only non-Hispanics there, other than the pastor and a couple people that were in the band. So I just think that they were very appreciative to have people take an interest in their culture and in their beliefs. So I was very excited to do this project, and I just hope that you guys really get something out of it and that you can just enjoy her culture as much as I do. So something I learned that was really interesting is that Hispanic religion is mostly Christianity. Most of them are Roman Catholic, although there are some people that practice other denominations of Christianity, such as like evangelical, non-denominational, stuff like that. But the really interesting thing that I learned from talking to friends and people at the church is that most Roman Catholic churches are not truly Roman Catholic. They're combined with gods and goddesses from Mayan and Aztec cultures. So if you see a depiction of a saint, which is very common in the Catholic Church, you will also see that their image is kind of mixed with the image of a Mayan or Aztec god or goddess. So like in the background of this picture, you can see that the statues of the saints are wearing traditional fabrics made by like the Mayans, and that's not really normal. You don't really usually put stuff over the statues of saints in the Catholic Church. Like, they just have the clothes they have on. And you can also see that this is a picture from Good Friday, from Holy Week. And so what they do is they take Jesus' statue down from the cross and carry him in this casket like in a parade around town. And instead of having a crown of thorns, they have all of these flowers, because in the Mayan culture, they believe that when you die, you turn into flowers. And so that's another way that like the Mayan culture is combined. Also, if I have seen a Holy Week parade in Guatemala before, and they do carry around the statues of like Jesus and Mary and the saints, and they also carry around statues that symbolize more of like the Mayan gods, but they also stand for saints, and you kind of have to ask them about it. I linked an article down below, and that's where I got the picture from, and it's a really good article. It actually is talking about Holy Week traditions in one of the Guatemalan towns. But from what I gathered from talking to people at the church and everything, it's pretty common across Central and South American countries for this mix to happen in the Catholic Church. And the article is really good. It just kind of talks about the mix of Mayan and Catholic traditions, and talks about some of the different saints and how they stand for gods and goddesses. And I just thought that was really interesting to learn, that although they profess to be Catholic, it's kind of a mix. And the saints are kind of referred to as pagan saints because they're not fully Catholic. They kind of are also symbols of other gods. The church service I went to was held in a Pentecostal church, which is an uncommon denomination for Hispanics to be a part of. I found that a lot of the people from Spanish-speaking countries that went to this church weren't Pentecostal. They just went there because it was a service that was in Spanish that they could understand. They liked the music and the message. Although some of them, if you can tell from the picture, I didn't want to like get right up on them and take a picture because I felt that would be rude. But you can see that some of them have the typical, like, are wearing skirts and have their hair up like you would see at a typical Pentecostal church. One thing I noticed was that they have a lot of upbeat songs. I go to a non-denominational church, so we do have a lot of upbeat songs also, but they like hardly do any like slower worship type songs. They just are all very upbeat, always clapping, always jumping around. They will like even leave the pews and jump around and raise their hands and clap and dance and shout. And it's really kind of fun to watch, actually. As you can see, a lot of them are out of their pews in this picture and are up at the front, just worshiping. And I know in Pentecostal churches, even not in a Spanish service, it's more common for things to be more charismatic like that. But I know that from what little I've seen when I was in Guatemala, pretty much any church service you go to, no matter the denomination, seems to be more upbeat from what little I've seen and heard. So I just think that's really interesting. I posted a recording down below it was of this lady singing, but I took the recording more so that you guys could hear, like, even while she's singing, people are just like exclaiming and clapping and like yelling things, and even the singer is taking breaks to like yell things, and it's just very exciting. They're very loud. That's just kind of their personality, part of their culture is just being loud sometimes. So it was really interesting. They just really weren't afraid to worship however they saw fit, and I thought that was really cool. So after the service, we were invited to a dinner, and what I was told was that most of the food was traditionally Mexican food that night. So they had taquitos, which are the little rolled up tortillas, and they were full of refried beans and chicken. They had chicken and vegetables in a red sauce, and they had some breaded chicken. It is disrespectful to turn down or waste food in Hispanic culture, so, like, for example, I was supposed to eat with my parents after this church service, but I still took some food from here because it would have been disrespectful for me not to have eaten. It's also disrespectful to waste food. So, as you can see, I tried to get a good picture, but people had lots of things on the table, so it was kind of hard. But if everybody's done eating and there's still food left over, people just start bagging it up and, keeping some for themselves, giving some to their friends and family. It's just, they don't like to waste food in their culture. It's just not something that they do. I even noticed this when I was in Guatemala. If we didn't finish all the food on our plates, our friends that were from Guatemala would ask us, "Oh, do you care if we get a bag and take your leftovers home?" So it's just something that is not common in their culture to do, to just waste food. I learned that it is also disrespectful to just refer to all Hispanic food as Mexican food or whatever country you think it's from, because all of the countries make their foods very differently, and it is very insulting to them if you call their food Mexican food when it's from Guatemala or Nicaragua or somewhere. So it's just very important to, ask where the food is from and compliment it, and, don't just assume that it's from one country or another, because it's actually very offensive to them when you don't recognize and respect their food from their country. Another interesting thing I learned about the food is that these are called taquitos because they're rolled up tacos, but actually if you go to Central America or South America, pretty much all tacos are rolled up like that, and the only reason they called these taquitos was because the tortillas were so small that they made like really small little rolled up tacos. But even if it was a bigger one that was all rolled up, something that we would think of more as of a burrito, they still call it a taco. And I thought that was really interesting too. I got to try this drink while we were at the dinner that I had never tried before. I asked what it was. I learned that it was also a traditionally Mexican drink. It's kind of like a Mexican version of hot chocolate. It looks like chocolate milk or hot chocolate. There's a picture of mine. And it is called champurrado, or atole de galletas Marias. And galletas Marias is these cookies down in the bottom picture. Galletas means cookies. So just Maria cookies is what they're called. And the drink is just made up of water, sugar, sticks of cinnamon, Mexican chocolate, corn flour, and galletas Marias. So they basically just dissolve the cookies in there, and sometimes they crumble more on top. So it tastes really good. It's kind of almost a weird texture because the cookies are dissolved in there, so you get kind of chunks of cookies, but it actually is really good. It's very sweet and very cinnamony, and I just thought it was a very interesting drink. I'd never heard of it before. I also included a link to a YouTube video that just shows how they make the drink, just because I thought it was interesting. I couldn't find any that didn't have the ingredients in Spanish, though, on the video. So I figured I would give the ingredients to you on here, that way you would have some background when you watch the video. But I think it's just really interesting to learn how to make different things from different cultures, so I just included that video at the bottom of the slide. I also just wanted to include this self-reflection slide and just think of areas where I could have done better at being, more culturally sensitive and things like that. So I did not ask where all of the food was from. I asked where most of it was from, but there were some things that I just kind of took. I just kind of assumed, since everything else was kind of Mexican themed that night, that it was too, but maybe I should have asked, maybe it wasn't. I also wish I would have walked around more to different tables and gotten to know more people during dinner. Um, like I said in my Flipgrid video, I have Guatemalan friends that live in St. Louis now that go to that church, and so I sat at their table with them, and they had some of their other friends come over and sit at this big round table with us, and so I talked to a lot of people at that table, but I think it would have been even better if I would have, gotten up and gone around and talked to more people. Maybe I would have met people from more different countries, or, just learned even more, and so I just think that if I ever get to go back, I'll take that opportunity to just get to know more people and just show more interest in the people there. I would like to have asked more specific questions about each country, so instead of just asking about the food that was there that night, maybe talking to them more about the food from their country, like how is it different from this food, or what was church like back before they came to the US and their country, and things like that, that just would have made them feel like I cared more and helped me learn more about how the cultures differ across Hispanic countries. Another thing is each person's mannerisms were slightly different based on what country they were from. Like I was saying before, Hispanic culture in the US is usually just seen as one big like blanket culture, and they share a lot of similarities, but what I'm learning more and more is that they actually are different from country to country, just a little bit. Just some mannerisms are different, some of the ways they cook things and, do everyday tasks are just a little bit different. And I just think that I should have paid more attention to that and asked more questions about that, and just been more sensitive to their differences and, their pride for their country that they're from. I just want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to my presentation, and I hope that you find the Hispanic culture as interesting as I do, and that you just got something out of this, and that you just learned a little bit more about the Hispanic culture, and that maybe it inspires you to learn even more. It's just a culture that I'm very fond of, and I just love to share it with others.